So yeah, good morning everyone. Those in person and those online. My name is Kamil Gungor. I work for the European Network on Independent Living, and today I have the pleasure to chair this workshop, this session on built environment and tourism in the framework of Accessible EU. And when we talk about accessibility, we talk about many different aspects. It can be environment, it can be documents, it can be information. In this workshop, we will tackle specifically the built environment aspect and, also in connection to tourism in some way. And we have three speakers with us in three different formats. So there is Ivor Ambrose, who is the first one, and he will speak online. Ivor is a managing director of INAT, the European Network for Accessible Tourism. And it is a multi-stakeholder network which he co-founded in Brussels in 2008. INAT promotes policies and good practices on accessible tourism and is a partner of the Accessible EU. So that's why we of the Accessible EU and its resource center. That's why he is also, it's a big part of this workshop. Ivor is from England and has worked in a university as a university researcher and lecturer, project coordinator, and consultant in England, Denmark, Belgium, and Greece. So Ivor will be our first speaker. Then we will have Katerina Papamichail. She is neither online nor in person. She sent a video. So that's the second format we have of speaker today. Katerina is Greek architect, an expert on accessibility of the built environment and universal design. She is founding member of INAT as well. She worked for the Greek Social Housing Organization as chief architect and was a deputy site manager for the Olympic and Paralympic Village in Athens 2004. In 2004, I mean. Yeah, 2004. I'm always confused how we pronounce dates in English. It's strange. But okay. So she is a consultant, project member, and trainer at INAT and take part in a European and international standards work on accessibility. So Katerina will be second speaker, and we have a video of Katerina. And finally, we have with us also Magnus Berglund, who is a CEO and founder at Accessibility Business, which provides high-level consultancy on accessibility for public and private sector clients in the tourism sector. He is well known for his pioneering work as accessibility manager at Scandic Hotels, and he will share his experience on that. Welcome to people coming, by the way. And where he was also responsible for accessibility standards and staff training on disability awareness and accessibility. Magnus is with us in person, so that's why I said we have three speakers in three different formats, which is nice. And it's nice also to have people following the session also online and in person. If something is not working properly for you online, please let us know in the comments. And for those of you in person, there are some QR codes in some spaces in the room, in the tables. We will kindly ask you to scan them and to register from the QR code because it's part of the whole project idea. It's a small registration you need to do. So at some point, please scan the QR code. You should have it in a few places. Like the one I have next to me, next to my assistant. So this kind of thing. And yeah, I think that's the technical aspect. So yeah, let me also tell you a few words about what we will discuss about. Yes, and then I will give the floor to Ivor, but very quickly to just give you an idea. And also, yeah, it's similar to what I said yesterday in the evening, but I know many of you were tired and not everyone was there, so let me repeat again. Because, yeah, I mean, it's good to share the information. So the Accessibility User Resource Center has been launched to improve accessibility of the built environment, ICTs, transport standards, and legislation with number of coordinated actions. And why the built environment is addressed as a separate target, there is strong relationship between all 5 areas. And as I said, we have parallel workshops at the moment. People speaking, on these different topics in different rooms right now. we are particularly addressing the architectural barriers. The built environments are also architectural barriers. And because there are still many significant architectural barriers that affect the freedom of movement for disabled people and others with specific access requirements in Europe, in our towns, in our cities, in public spaces, buildings, even in the natural environment, which we don't discuss as much as we should. But, we should have the right to access it as well and enjoy its benefits. Accessibility is monitoring built environment policies and their implementation of accessibility legislation and standards. And we aim to improve access to relevant knowledge and skills by professionals, including architects, of course, engineers, public procurement officer, and we are identifying and sharing good practices that may be transferred to all types of buildings and environment. Disabled people, of course, are part of the whole discussion in a co-productive way. Accessibility is often seen mistakenly as an additional cost in the construction sector. We will see later why this is not exactly the case. But when buildings and environments are designed correctly, following the design for all principles and the universal design, this enhances architectural quality and ensures that everyone can use it easily, that has higher quality, comfort, health, and safety for all users over the lifetime of the construction. So yeah, we want you to join the community of practice and keep in touch with Accessibility EU, and especially in that case, with the built environment part of it, but of course all of the other parts as well. And yeah, I think we are more or less ready to stop listening to my annoying voice and to give the space to the protagonists of the sessions. So I will start with Ivor. I say again, is the managing director of INAT. And Ivor will give us an introduction about the Accessibility EU Resource Center, an overview of the built environment policies, and the standards in EU. So he will put us in a framework that we can put the discussion afterwards. Ivor, the floor is yours. Hope you are good and the weather in Athens to be okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kamil. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you to Zero Project for hosting this session. I'm here from Athens, as you said, and I'm joining you with with a PowerPoint, which I will open in a minute. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you, as it were, virtually, and all the people who've joined online. Thank you for coming, making the effort to be in Vienna. I couldn't be there myself this time, but I know very well the Zero Project, and have appeared there and joined the networking many times, and it's a great event, maybe the top event in the world. So for disability inclusion, and I think you do a great job out there, Zero, and I really admire the work that you're doing. So thank you again for this opportunity to be with you. Now I'm going to try and share my slides, and this should go quite smoothly. We've been practicing. Let's see. And here is a full screen, which I hope you can see. Okay, so Kamil has given us an excellent introduction. I'll be talking about the Accessibility EU Resource Centre, and then an overview of built environment policies and standards in the European Union. Then there will be a video from Katarina Papamichail, my colleague at INAT, on accessibility of cultural and natural heritage. And then Magnus will be speaking about accessibility in the hospitality sector. And we've chosen these themes within built environment to have a look really at things that relate to tourism also, because this is one of our key interests. The three of us speaking from INAT today, Magnus is also an INAT member. We're very interested in seeing how the tourism sector is approaching some of the difficulties and the challenges and overcoming these challenges in built environment and the facilities that are prepared and offered to visitors. So this will be one of the points that we want to draw out. And in this session, we've also been asked to consider conclusions as well, to draw some conclusions that could be passed on to regional and national and EU level decision makers. So I'll be highlighting a few things along the way, and I hope also you might, as the audience, take some notes and see which kind of things you would like to see the European Union focusing on in the coming years. I'll go forward now with the PowerPoint. I think we're here in the right place. Okay. So, that was just who we are, but you've seen Camille. I'm online, and Katarina is actually flying somewhere over Poland at the moment towards Scandinavia. Magnus is in the room. So here we are for this session. Okay. So the Accessible EU Resource Centre first. And this is about working together for improving accessibility in Europe for people with disabilities and everyone. It's a flagship initiative proposed in the European Commission's Strategy for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities 2021 to 2030. And this is a resource centre. Accessible EU is a virtual centre. It's online. It's not a building, it's not a place, but it should be everywhere in Europe, where we're working on built environment, transport, information, communication technologies and policies to ensure the participation of persons with disabilities in all areas of life on an equal basis with others. Who's behind it? The consortium lead is the Fundación ONCE, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Spanish organization. And we are 4 partners: the European Association of Service Providers for Persons with Disabilities, the European Network for Accessible Tourism, the Johannes Kepler University in Linz in Austria, and UNE, the Spanish Association for Standardization. We're working with 3 organizations under subcontracting: European Disability Forum, Digital Europe, and Age Platform Europe. And we have some support services from Deloitte, from Unisys, and Pumilio Bloom. So we also have over 30 national experts in all the member states of Europe. These are the names of them. You can see all this information on the website that I'll give you at the end, the Accessible EU website, where there's a link to their LinkedIn pages of all these experts. These are experts in different areas, of course, from built environment, ICTs and transport and so on. But there's one in your country if you come from the European Union, and you're very welcome to get in touch with them. We have an advisory board which meets a couple of times a year to guide the project. I won't go into all this detail, but you will receive this PowerPoint afterwards, or you can download it from our website, the accessibletourism.org website, ENAT. So you will be able to get this information afterwards. So what is Accessible EU doing? We will support the implementation of the European Union legislation on accessibility. This is a key point because the European Union has a number of legal acts and regulations about accessibility, but they don't just happen by themselves. We want to support the implementation of the legislation and build the capacity on accessibility. That means really making sure that the professionals and organizations have the skills to work on accessibility in the EU countries. We will be connecting stakeholders, that is, all the people who have an interest in accessibility of the built environment, responsible for implementing accessibility rules in the EU. And we will create what is effectively online a one-stop shop where you can go for all the information you want to find out about accessibility and its importance for enabling people to be included in society in every possible way. There are training modules as well that are going to be offered. We had one last year. We have some more training this year to train professionals on accessibility, how to do their job and ensure that we reach everyone. And there will be a study every year on a selected topic. In figures, we are aiming for, this is what the Commission has set the project's goals are for 500 new members per year in the community of practice. We already have over 1,000 members. 60 entries per year in the Accessible EU online library, around 150 good practices per year to be identified, 88 events in all the member states along the EU during 2023 and in the coming years, and 34 experts, well, that was the number, from 27 EU member states. And this project is running from last year right through to 2026. So we're going to be busy, and there's going to be a big push on accessibility, as you can imagine. So we're offering the online library, teaching on accessibility, networking, accessibility monitoring and surveillance, which is very important, to check in the member states what is the progress with accessibility in terms of legislation, policies, and how does that affect people's experience of accessibility, people who are living with a disability and all others who need good access. How is that being, we'll be monitoring that to find out, hopefully, how it improves over the next 4 years. Our events are called awareness raising events, training and networking events. So these are 3 types of events with workshops, mutual learning and information through conferences and so on. These are sometimes standalone conferences for Accessible EU and events, but others may be connected with professional organizations, universities and so on that are holding their own events, and we join them to get more added value, both for the conference delegates, but also for Accessible EU as a whole, to disseminate this information and to share the information between countries so that we bring everybody up on a high level. And who can participate? Well, it's everyone who is interested, really. Private and public companies, associations of businesses across all different industries, persons with disabilities, older persons and their organizations, the public administration, responsible for accessibility legislation and policies, public procurers, those who go out and buy equipment, buy services to make sure that these are accessible for everyone to use. Public authorities responsible for the market surveillance of products and compliance and services with accessibility obligations. And providers of services for persons with disabilities. Also assistive technology providers. And in our particular field, the built environment professionals, architects and engineers, and other technology developers. And of course, as I just mentioned, universities, academia, in working with accessibility and disability. So the message is that you can get involved and to build you and the community on the links here to social media at EU_social, at EU Social in Facebook, Accessible EU Centre in the LinkedIn, and Social Europe, which is on YouTube. And the website is at www.accessibleeucentre in one word, .eu. And you can contact the Accessible EU at fundaciononce.es for any information that you need. There's also a QR code on this slide to join our community of practice. And just a note about that, at the moment the community of practice is established on a LinkedIn page, a LinkedIn group, but it will be moving to a more flexible format so that we can establish thematic groups, working groups in different areas where it's more dynamic than the LinkedIn group format, where you'll be able to really have a say and converse on the issues that you're concerned with. So now I move into this overview of built environment policies and standards in the European Union. And actually I'm referring mainly to a report that we made last year on accessibility of the built environment. This background report provides basic information related to the EU policies and the legislation and standards that aim to ensure accessibility of the built environment for all citizens. And accessibility, of course, is recognized as an enabling factor for freedom of movement and the full social and economic integration of persons with disabilities. This report is 32 pages long, and it's available at the very long link there, but you will find it from Accessible EU main website under resources. So let me take you through a few of the headlines and main points about the access barriers and how we are trying to remove them. Now, these barriers affect all of us, and some more than others. Of course, persons with disabilities are sometimes hindered in accessing places, accessing services, because of the way the built environment is. Historically, Europe is typically very difficult to get around because we didn't have the ideas like design for all and universal design in the past. We were working from a very difficult base when we think about historical environments, and we need to make we need to overcome the barriers, but also make sure that there are no barriers in the new buildings that we build, the new environments that we design, the cities, the urban spaces, and everywhere that people have to live and work, and in tourism to enjoy their free time. So poor accessibility discriminates against the rights of 87 million persons with disabilities, reducing the freedoms of approximately 90.5 million citizens aged 65 and older, as well as families with small children and European consumers in general, as was stated in the European Commission Disability Strategy 2021 to 2030. It's clearly a significant issue still today. Although many people have been working on accessibility of the built environment for many years, there are still many things to be achieved to improve the situation. Now, when we come to standards, there are accessibility standards, of course, in every country for the built environment, but they often fail to accommodate the diverse range of access needs. Accessibility requirements in building regulations can often lead to a minimal compliance approach or attitude. That is, accessibility is seen as a cost and a burden by many in the construction industry, and those who are actually asking for buildings to be built, investing in buildings. They see accessibility as a cost and a burden, and this is something that's come about historically, I think, because accessibility isn't really understood, and it's not understood as something which is good for everyone. It's not just for a marginalized group of people with disabilities. And this attitude has held back designers from understanding the advantages of accessible buildings. And this is also, this idea of the cost and the burden of accessibility has also driven down the quality and even the safety and usability of the built environment for many users. Nowadays, we're working towards a universal design or design for all or inclusive design approach. These are similar ideas, similar ways of thinking more about the design of the built environment for the widest possible range of users. And although they have different names, these approaches are being practiced in Europe, in North America, also South America, in Singapore and other countries, which Australia, of course, which are working towards a more holistic approach, which is taking in those wider requirements, access requirements, but also thinking about the quality of the environments that we build in terms of aesthetics, making sure that they are not only functional, but also beautiful, and that the environment is good for everybody who needs to use it. Even the Standards Organization in Europe, CENELEC, has said there is now greater awareness of the diversity of users and an appreciation of their varied lived experiences, such that the needs and requirements of persons with disabilities related to mobility, body stature, sensory impairments, long-term health conditions, cognition, neurodiversity, and persons in different stages of life have influenced recent EU and international accessibility standards. So with this shift towards the universal design or design for all approach, I think we can see a change is coming about in the attitude towards accessibility and who it's useful for and why it's important in all our work for the built environment. We've also got strong support from the UN Convention. There are legal measures in place to recognize accessibility as a right that should be guaranteed by laws and statutes. So following the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the EU and all the member states have signed up to this convention, and EU policies also nowadays are focusing on accessibility of built environment in many policy documents, legislation, acts and standards, and funding, European funding, of course. And so areas of application where the improvement and renewal, refurbishment, renovation of the built environment and new build should all respect accessibility norms and regulations and standards. These policies and regulations are there to support decision makers, planners, architects, designers, engineers and procurement officers in their work to ensure accessibility and usability of everything in the built environment. I'm just listing now some of the key policies on accessibility. There is the European Accessibility Act. This is a directive from 2019, number 882, on the accessibility requirements for products and services. The Act addresses accessibility of products and digital services for transportation, e-commerce, and the accessibility of public sector websites and mobile applications. The aim of this Act is to improve trade in goods and services right across Europe to create what we call this level playing field, so that all people who are working in these areas are ensuring that they work to the same requirements. Now, this European Accessibility Act does not apply to buildings and the built environment as such, but it does include an annex, Annex 3, with indicative requirements, meaning guidance, for accessibility of buildings where digital services are provided. So it's not mandatory to follow this Annex 3, but it's an advisory document. And of course, this Act comes into force in all EU member states in 2025. So there is a period of transition at the moment to make all the national legislation compliant with the European Accessibility Act. So this is a good step forward, but I would say that in some ways the built environment has come off worse in terms of EU policies. We're not on a level with ICTs, as you can see, in information and communication technologies have advanced further in terms of legislative power behind the requirements from the EU. We have differences of opinion between member states, and this is why I think that the Accessibility Act did not achieve the fullest goal that it might have done to apply also to buildings and built environments. But it's important to recognize that it is complicated to harmonize the requirements for built environment, the regulations, and even the standards. However, there are also other directives which are working in terms of public procurement, which has provisions for accessibility in public procurement processes. Directive 2014 is one of these. And the regulation on the European Regional Development Fund and on the Cohesion Fund also sets out the scope and aims of the two cohesion policy funds. And these are the European Regional Development Fund and Cohesion Fund, and accessibility should be applied horizontally in EU-funded projects and initiatives. So, no accessibility, then you have to send the money back to the European Commission that you have received for your projects. Very important lever to encourage the right design, the right way of building and creating our built environment for the future. Now, we do have also a few European standards and technical reports on accessibility that I'd like to highlight. And these are quite recent. the EN 17210 is on accessibility and usability of the built environment, giving the functional requirements and recommendations on how to create accessible environments of all kinds and covering all types of buildings, specialized buildings like hospitals and schools, but also buildings in general, and the built environment extending right through to urban design as well, which is a very wide-ranging standard, also based on the universal design principles. So it's a standard which accommodates everyone, those with disabilities, and anyone else who has an access requirement when they're moving through the built environment. So in this way, we have, I would say, a milestone standard in the 17210. We have also a more operational, process-oriented standard on design for all, accessibility following a design for all approach in products, goods and services, extending the range of users. This standard explains the purpose of design for all and how it can be integrated in the business flows, in the workflows, in all kinds of areas to ensure that all products and services are suitable for everyone. There are two technical reports that follow on from the first standard I mentioned on built environment accessibility, and these are giving technical performance criteria and specifications which will enable, it's a list of, or a compilation of examples of good practice, you might say, which show how to reach the functional requirements that are in the standard 17210. And the second one of these technical reports is on the conformity assessment. It's most important that the conformity with standards is measured, is analyzed, and is recorded so that it's possible to see whether a building, a new area actually conforms to the standards. So this has been written to enable the procurers and also to enable architects, designers themselves to analyze the work that they're doing in order to achieve a good, accessible built environment. This is not an exhaustive list at all. There are many other standards related to, for example, buildings for transport, that is transport terminals, for other lifts, of course, is a very important issue in this regard. So there are many others that are referred to in the report. Now, as we've heard many times, regulations and policies are not sufficient on their own to achieve the objective of an accessible European Union for all citizens and visitors. And here are some suggestions, and maybe also you could think of others, which we might talk about after this presentation. Additional measures can, of course, include this awareness raising of professionals and all stakeholders. This is something that is targeted in Accessible EU, of course. Education and training of students and continuing professional development. Now, it's quite remarkable still to look across the curricula of universities in all kinds of professions related to design and construction and see that actually accessibility is very often not taught to students and certainly not as an obligatory course. It's very rare to find obligatory training on accessibility, design for all in our design oriented educations in universities and design schools. Accessibility still is way down the curriculum and very often an optional subject that people can specialize in. It's not something that everybody knows about. And we think that this is a big weakness in the education sector, that we need to have a much more highlight much more the importance of accessibility, because it affects everything that we do, and not only, as I said before, the function, but also the aesthetic quality, and as I will also point out later, the sustainability of buildings and built environment as well. We need also better national accessibility monitoring and reporting mechanisms. And Accessible EU is working on this to improve the monitoring and reporting by the work of the experts who are involved. The Accessible EU Resource Centre was launched in 2022, running till 2026, to improve accessibility in all these areas we've talked about. And there's, of course, this strong relationship between all of them. So in terms of Accessible EU actions, we're looking at the monitoring and implementation, and we're looking at access to relevant knowledge, passing on information from those who have been working in the field for some years and seeing where the leading edge is in accessibility, where is the innovation. We're looking to identify and share good practices and carry out studies on accessibility, and then contribute to the development of new harmonized accessibility standards in Europe. The standards I've showed you are all being updated, also those in ICTs, to create harmonized accessibility standards. This is the ambition, to have a harmonized accessibility standard for the built environment in Europe. So, as I said, accessibility is also a key factor for achieving EU policies on sustainable development in line with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And people would often say, well, yes, there is this goal, the Sustainable Development Goals on reduced inequalities, but accessibility goes much beyond that. It's not only about achieving and aiming for reduced inequality between different groups of citizens, particularly those with disabilities, but accessibility also affects the quality of other and affects the targets as well of the other development goals, such as the health and well-being, number 3, the number 9, the industry, innovation and infrastructure, thinking about always having accessibility as part of the solution. In number 11, the SDG number 11 on sustainable cities and communities, we've also got number 13, climate action. How we design our buildings greatly affects our climate response, response to the climate crisis. Not only thinking in terms of energy saving, but also in terms of how accessibility can contribute to energy saving, to using materials that are more friendly and healthy, and also to number 15, life on land, and number 17, of course, the partnerships for the goals. So with that, I will just finish with 2 short examples from Accessibility EU national experts from France and from Malta. So all our national experts are collecting these good examples. They are on the website of Accessible EU Centre, where there are more than 150 examples already. And I've just picked a couple of these out to illustrate how, particularly in the tourism sector, we can see some good practices that are leading the way and acting as a beacon to follow for others. So the first one I'm showing here is a good practice on access to the Chateau of the Dukes of Brittany, a historical museum in Nantes in France. This project was carried out actually a number of years ago, and it was essential for the city of Nantes to present its chateau, this historical building, to present this and give access to wheelchair users, people with mobility impairments and also sensory impairments, and make it possible for everyone to visit as much of the castle as possible and to have a fulfilling experience as a tourist in this notable attraction of the city. So what did we do? They provided an access guide for visitors, which records all the work that's been done to make the area accessible. And that includes an access map to show the way with public transport, pathways and entrance points. And this, the idea of having accessible routes in cities is a very important one. It's one of maybe the first things you should think about in looking at accessibility, to make sure there is transportation and public access around the city to reach the attractions that tourists might want to visit. just a couple of pictures from the entrance. I mean, this was a castle. This was a fortress. This was something that was not intended to be accessible just to anyone. And so buildings like this are actually built to be inaccessible, but only to those who have permission to come in, you know. So we have an issue about finding and creating accessible entrances in buildings like this. It's a common problem everywhere, and it's something that's been tackled very well here. And there are also assistance points, the access for PRMs, persons with reduced mobility, at different points to enter the castle. I'm just highlighting a couple of the features here, just to show this work has been done on a large scale to make the site permanently accessible, particularly for wheelchair users. But as I said, there are also other measures to improve the accessibility for people with sensory impairments. So here's a second one. This is in Malta, where there is a site with megalithic structures. So this is going way back to prehistory. This was developed, of course, by the public administration there, and Heritage Malta was responsible to make this site, which is a difficult site. It's on different levels, which was originally uncovered, so it was below ground. And the work that was done includes elevated walkways being accessible through ramps. So wheelchairs are also provided on site. The elevated walkway and a structural intervention is completely reversible. And this is one of the key features of historical buildings, that in order to ensure that the archaeological sites like this can be studied and analyzed, it's very important that any kind of structures that are added could be reversible, could be taken out again, so that archaeologists and other scientists can do their work to perhaps discover some new things when new technologies come along, things that we didn't know about before. So within this setting, then rest areas and covered shelters are provided. You can see the big cover on this picture. There are gender-neutral accessible toilets, and also facilities for nappy changing for children. And the staff, this is also important, have been trained on issues around accessibility and the requirements of visitors. So in that way, it's an approach which corresponds to the most holistic approach you can think of. The staff who are there are not there to guard the monument against the visitors. They're there to enable the visitors to have a fulfilling experience, and they understand that some people have access needs which need particular care and attention. So there are also information panels on the site, and these are mounted at a height that is legible for wheelchair users and people of short stature. There's also an app, a mobile application available for visitors, and the downloadable access statement. So on the next slide, if we're lucky, I can also show you a short video of the wheelchair access to these Tarkian temples in Malta. Let's go.
We don't have the sound. I don't know if we should or if it's okay.
It's only music. Okay, thank you. That's all from Malta. Stop, thank you. And that's all from me. So that was just a quick roundup of what's going on in Accessible EU and some highlights from the tourism sector on the built environment. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Ivor.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. That was a great, and very thorough introduction on the Accessible EU and what it means and why it is relevant. We could discuss many of the aspects you highlighted, and I personally have a lot of comments and thoughts. I will very briefly mention, first of all, that I liked that you mentioned the CRPD. We need to remember that, everything we do and everything we advocate for is in line with our rights and the convention. And we don't just create our own standards and ideas, but we follow a very specific, let's say, guide agreed by pretty much the whole world. And, that is promoting our rights. So that's very good to mention. Then you mentioned a lot of policies and standards. So there is progress. You said it already. We have new things. More things are, let's say, more of our rights are protected, and more things are in place. However, you also said, that there is also some things to be done. This is what I keep. For example, you mentioned the European Accessibility Act. I remember in the Brussels bubble when we first heard it, and there were many people, especially from the policy sector, saying, "Wow, fantastic! We brought a new European Accessibility Act into place in Europe. We celebrate." The disability movement was saying, "Yes, it's good, but it's only on the digital stuff. What happens with the environment? We don't live in the clouds. We live in the world, and we need, to make sure that this is also following." So you said it's a recommendation and in an annex, but that's not enough. We need to have policies and clear guidance, that will ensure that we can travel and move. I am a travel blogger myself also a part of other stuff. So I know that just digital is not enough, to be able to exercise my rights as fellow Europeans colleagues. So I keep also that part. And finally, before I move to Katerina, just to say that I also personally find super useful to have this resource center, because there's a lot of stuff there, and you can find and use it for your work, for your life. And this is all, as you said, getting richer and richer, and more contributions come in. So it's very good and very important, And yeah, everyone, make sure you follow that developments. Before I go to Katerina, I would like to remind everyone again that there are some QR codes on the tables. So don't forget to scan them and register. It's part of the process of the workshop. So this is for people here in person. I think those online, you don't have to do it. But for those of you being here, now that we have more people and you didn't hear it in the beginning, please take a couple of minutes to scan the QR code at some point now or later to make sure you are registered. And with that, I go to Katerina Papamichail, architect, also from INAT, and she is a national expert on Accessible EU in Greece. And Katerina will talk something which is very close to my heart personally, about accessibility of cultural and natural heritage. So Katerina has a video of about 20 minutes, I think. And are we ready to play the video? Okay, cool. Thank you.
Good morning to all. I'm very happy to participate in the Zero conference today. Of course, I'm very sorry that I cannot be with you in presence, but I hope I can give you some insights in this topic. Let me share my screen with you. My presentation is about accessibility for all to cultural and natural resources by applying principles of universal design. Why is universal design so important to tangible heritage and cultural tourism? In relation, of course, to heritage monuments, buildings and sites, landscapes and nature. Universal design plays a crucial role in preserving and ensuring access to cultural and natural heritage sites by creating spaces that are functional for everyone, aesthetically pleasing, and respectful of the site's history and significance. What is universal design? It is the design of products and environments to be usable by all people to the greatest extent possible, without the need for adaptation or specialized design. The intent of the universal design concept is to simplify life for everyone. It targets all people of all ages, sizes, and abilities, and also applies to the design of services. The universal design approach is the key to removing barriers and ensuring good access for everyone, including people with disabilities. It is based on 7 principles. First, equitable use. The design is useful and marketable to people with diverse abilities. In the pictures, we see a bridge with step-free access, an efficient site by a river, which both allow access to wheelchair users and so the whole family can enjoy nature together. Second, flexibility in use. The design accommodates a wide range of individual preferences and abilities. In the picture, you see ramp and stairs at the main entrance of the Norwegian Parliament, allowing people to choose the way to enter the building according to their abilities. Third, simple and intuitive use. Use of the design is easy to understand, regardless of the user's experience, knowledge, language skills, or current concentration level. We see a water tap at the campground that can be activated by lever tap or push button. 4. Perceptible information. The design communicates necessary information effectively to the user, regardless of ambient conditions or the user's sensory abilities. Here we see on the left-hand side in the photo a tactile model of the town centre of Cambridge in UK. Visitors can see or touch the model. The design and height also of the support allows the approach of wheelchair users. On the other picture on the right, we can see a relief model of a painting and braille text, which enables a blind person to experience a painting. 5. Tolerance for error. The design minimizes hazards and the adverse consequences of accidental or unintended actions. On the left picture, we can see marked steps in Nidaros Cathedral, Trondheim. A line of colored material has been cut into the outer part of the step to warn the visitor of the presence of steps. On the other picture on the right, which is from the Archbishop Palace in Norway, we see a physical division which is achieved by a glass sliding door that allows visual openness. The glass door is marked so that it is easily visible to those with impaired vision and prevents collisions. 6. Low physical effort. The design can be used efficiently and comfortably and with a minimum of fatigue. In the example, we see internal automatic glass doors in Archbishop's Palace in Trondheim, Norway, requiring no physical effort by the users. 7. Size and space for approach and use. Appropriate size and space is provided for approach, reach, manipulation, and use regardless of user's body size, posture, or mobility. We can see in the picture placement of information board at a suitable height for everyone, including wheelchair users. Historical buildings, monuments, and sites originated at a time when accessibility and universal design were unknown. Monuments and sites often have distinctive physical characteristics which in themselves prevent accessibility. For managers of heritage sites, there's a double challenge. First, to reduce various access barriers so that the cultural heritage can be experienced and used by as many people as possible. And second, to ensure the measures to improve accessibility do not degrade the cultural heritage values. Let's see some examples of good practice in applying universal design in nature and heritage sites. Accessing and experiencing nature is important for everyone in a world where more and more people live in cities. To improve accessibility for all, visitors require sensitive interventions and careful management considering nature preservation. Here in the picture, we see a wooden path added in a nature site, allowing access to all, including wheelchair users. Information is also placed at the height so as to be easily read from a standing or seated position. Another example, supporting interpretation with the use of tactile models and tactile signage for blind and partially sighted visitors. In the left-hand side photo, we see tactile wooden fish sculptures in Latvia, and on the other picture on the right, tactile information at a lake, again in Latvia. Another example, access to natural landscapes of natural experiences, is the Otis Nature Trail in United States, where there are various stations that engage different senses for all visitors. This park, it is popular and safe for children with autism, and is also accessible to autistic adults and wheelchair users. And we never forget how important it is to have accessible toilets. This example is showing dry toilet accessible for people in wheelchairs, located at the walking trail along River Venta in Latvia. Another example I would like to show you is the Parque de Sintra in Portugal, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The cultural landscape of Parque de Sintra in central Portugal is part of the National Natural Park of Sintra Cascais, including historical buildings in a park and mountain landscape. There was a program called Welcome Better, and it was a program of accessibility improvements between the years 2013-2017 with a finance of 1.9 million euros. There was a planning about what to preserve and what to adapt, and that was dependent on the values of heritage and the effort to balance both these concepts. There was a concentrated effort about better physical infrastructure, better information, such as tactile models, and better services, for example, staff training in sign language and experiences for blind visitors, and provision of technical equipment. Several principles and methods were developed through cooperation. Main points are the reversibility of infrastructure works, consideration for the conservation principles, adaptive and creative solutions integral to the project, a cooperation of many teams and researchers, consultation with user groups from start to finish, and evaluation of the final result. Another remarkable experience is the Akershus Castle in Oslo, Norway. Akershus Castle is one of Norway's most important historical monuments and a popular tourist destination. Since 1905, and after extensive restoration, it is a place of representation for the government, hosting government events and state visits. In recent years, a project has been carried out to improve accessibility of the main castle buildings for persons with disabilities. The main entrance in the inner courtyard was only accessible via a stone staircase. It was a goal that visitors should be able to enter and move within the castle without the need of assistance, and that all use the same main entrance. Equality and dignity were two of the value criteria that were listed at the beginning of the project, which chose as its working title, Improved Accessibility. The ambition was that the measures chosen should result in solutions that would be as close to universal design as possible, knowing, of course, that full accessibility everywhere could not be achieved in such a place. In the picture, you see the courtyard before intervention on the left, and on the right, with a new lift tower that was added, connecting to the new staircase. The new lift, as you can see, the new lift tower is placed on the footprint of the first medieval tower at Akershus, but it has a clear contemporary character and presents an addition to the castle's long history of alterations. The new staircase had to be wider than the old, and the landing higher than the original. The result combines use of traditional materials such as limestone bricks and iron, but with a contemporary interpretation. Now, all visitors can use the same entrance to the castle's main building, and the goal has been achieved. Another example is the Acropolis of Athens, another UNESCO World Heritage Site that stands on a rock, presenting access challenges for many visitors. For decades, the only access to the top was by a steep and twisting footpath with many steps. Access was difficult and even dangerous in wet, slippery conditions. Access was hardly even discussed until the Greek state made a promise to make the Acropolis accessible for all in 1997, when the bid to host the Olympic and Paralympic Games 2004 was submitted. In 2004, a temporary lift was installed to enable wheelchair users to visit the holy rock of the Acropolis and the Parthenon. The lift, as you see in the photograph on the left, it was replaced with a larger, purpose-built lift in 2021 along the wider new pathways on the right for improving the visitability of the monument for people with disabilities and all visitors. The new paving provides, as you see on the picture on the right, a smooth and non-slip surface, and also aims to protect the rock itself and the archaeological remains. A specific concrete was chosen as aesthetically acceptable, resembling an artificial stone and corresponding to the materials used to complete the monuments. It is also durable, not requiring frequent maintenance. A special membrane is inserted between the new material and the rock surface, so it can be fully reversible. I will show you now an example of the new Acropolis Museum in Athens, which is related to the Acropolis monument that I showed you before. When building new constructions in historical cities, we often find important archaeological remains which have to be protected and, if possible, displayed to visitors. And that was the case in the Acropolis Museum, that has been elevated on 43 columns to protect the excavations and at the same time to highlight the archaeological findings which are now visitable and accessible also to wheelchair users. Visitors can see the excavations under the museum, as you can see in the picture. The museum is accessible for wheelchair users, as you see also in the picture, and also to many visitors. There are some alternative solutions where physical access cannot be achieved, because we have also cases like this. The example, it shows this prehistoric cave, Chauvet de, where they found out that the breadth of visitors would damage the original cave paintings. So the solution was a one-to-one replica of the caves that has been built as an accessible visitor attraction. And finally, we come to the subject of information. Universal design also applies to the provision of accessibility information for visitors. Here we see the example of the Royal Albert Hall in London, UK, which is a cultural heritage building and a venue for concerts and other events. There is an access guide which is produced with detailed information on accessibility, and this access guide is available on their website, and there is also a customer inquiry for the visitors which have any kind of other access requirement and they would like some special advice or support. Information, as I said, is very important because it is good to provide accessibility, but we also have to talk about it and inform the visitors in a good way regarding accessibility and in an accessible way, alternative formats. So let's come to some concluding thoughts. The objective of the dialogue between cultural heritage preservation and universal design is to achieve good results that safeguard the heritage values, but enable also the cultural heritage site to be used by everyone. What we have to think is that design is not just what it looks like. Design is how it works. I would also like to give you some further information about guidance documents regarding this subject. There is the ISO standard 21902, developed in 2021, Tourism and Related Services, Accessible Tourism for All, Requirements and Recommendations. The UN World Tourism Organization Recommendations on Accessibility for Key Players in Management of Natural Resources, published in October 2023. Another very important standard, which is under development and is finishing soon, is the new ISO standard 5727, Accessibility and Usability of the Built Environment, Accessibility of Immovable Cultural Heritage, General Principles and Methodology for Interventions. And finally, the book by Steinfeld and Meisel, Universal Design, Creating Inclusive Environments. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a very fruitful conference.
So, yeah, let me thank Katerina. Unfortunately, she is not with us, so she cannot listen really to what we say now. And unfortunately, will not take probably questions. I mean, not immediately. Maybe we can, send her questions afterwards if needed. However, yeah, I want to thank Katerina. She might watch the recording afterwards. It was a really interesting video presentation. I really loved, and I think it's very useful when it happens that we had examples. We didn't have just theory, but we had concrete examples from specific cases on how it happens and how it works. I have been to a couple of those. I live in Athens, so I have been in Acropolis very recently and, used the elevator. And, it's amazing to realize that you can do something which was unthinkable a few years before. We talk about a monument of 2,000, more than 2,000 years, 2,500 something, I think, or whatever. And, And by the way, I read something many people don't know, that in ancient Greece it was also possible to go up there, because they built it in a way accessible to bring the different materials upstairs. But after years, it was not anymore possible. And today they have this possibility. And she showed the palace in Norway and other places. And I remember in Japan they did same things in shrines. They installed an elevator and you could not even see the elevator because it was part of the whole shrine, how it was looking. But so it was, it was beautiful, but it was super useful because you could access it. And they do it in many places we don't know. You can go to Venice at the moment and people don't know that you can do it. You can go, to many places that we don't realize. And it's great that we discuss these things together and that we see also, that we have also these resources that also Ivor said before. But I don't want to bother you much with my voice and with taking more time. I have another great speaker with us. He is here in the room. So let's welcome also Magnus Berglund, accessibility business expert and accessibility support expert. And Magnus, you will talk about hospitality sector. I think it's also very important and interesting topic for those of us that travel often. And we have seen everything in hotels and in the hospitality sector. So you can tell us more about the insight of that.
Thank you very much, and thank you to be here today. And I promise I'm not going to speak too long. Just give me 10 minutes. And I work in the hotel business for many years before I started my own company. But I need to come back. It's really interesting what Ivor said about accessibility and built environment. And many people are always saying that, yeah, that's good, but it costs money. And that we hear everywhere. Yeah, but disability, yes, but costs money. But no one said, yeah, but if you do it, you're going to make more guests. You're going to make more money. We never speak about disability and we're going to make more money. And I have one thing that I always say, we don't having disabled people in hotels or in airports and like that. We have a guest, we have clients that maybe have a disability. That's a different way to thinking and really speak about it and work with it and really see that everyone is a customer. And I think that's extremely important. For me, I work in the hotel business all my life. And then I get rheumatic sickness when I was around 2000. And I really didn't know anything about how it was to have some sort of disability and travel and hotel. And I work in a hotel all my life, and I didn't even know that we're having disabled rooms in a hotel. So I really didn't know anything about that. But I'm learning very much. And to do a story short, I contacted Scandic Hotel that I know, and when I started working with them, the first we did was we letting everyone in the head office to sit in a wheelchair, starting with the CEO. It's just one part of all sorts of disability, but an extremely good way to getting up the discussion, and that's what we need to do. We need to having the discussion. The interesting was that everyone come back and said the same thing. Magnus, I don't learn it to go in a wheelchair for 2 hours, so give me a week, that's going to work. And you can't go in a suit in a wheelchair, who will build that? And all that discussion was coming up. And everyone said the same thing. And it was 150 people that did this, 2003, 2004. And everyone said, how do I closing the handicap toilet? No one could close in the handicap toilet, and it was built after all laws, all regulation. We had four builds, and I find handicap toilets in almost every airport in Europe. I find a handicap toilet you can't close, and that's because when you open the door outside, you need to have a railing under the door, and that's very normal. That's missed. And many times you can't, it's very hard to reach the soap if you sit in a wheelchair and things like that. And I've been in EU building, I find big handicap toilet was perfect. They think about everything, but when you need the toilet paper, you just need to go up, go 1.5 meters through the wall, get the toilet paper and go back. And the big problem is that when I speak about this, and when I speak about people that don't know about disability, and I'm asking 100 people, how many of you have seen a handicap toilet? Everyone put up the hand. How many of you was thinking that something was not right? So if Please put up your hand. And normally it's about 5 to 10% are putting up your hand, if I'm lucky. Then I asking how many of you was going directly to the reception and told them or send an email to the airport so they could fix it. Never happened. Then if I'm asking the same 100 people, if the lamp is broken in this conference room, how many of you is going to tell the reception that the lamp is broken? 100% is going to do that. So we need training. That's what we understand, because we thought that, okay, if we just fix a standard and then we're telling the technical guy to fix everything in the hotel, everything will be fixed. It's not that easy. We understand that we need to train not only the technical guy, we need to train many other people in the hotel sector to getting this up and getting this discussion. I mean, I was joking that, and we were speaking about that today, that people in wheelchair only drink tea, not coffee. Because in the most restaurant and in the hotels or in the office, the tea in the buffet is always down here and the cup of coffee is always up here. So someone have decided you don't drink coffee if you're sitting in a wheelchair. Okay, so now I understand we need to education the people that are working in the restaurant. Okay, we needing education the people that work in the reception, because if I may become in a wheelchair, doesn't matter how much we have designed and fixing this beautiful, perfect hotel, and we have a room that is perfect. That if you're sitting in a wheelchair, doesn't matter if I don't telling the person that's going to clean the room that she need to put down the shower. Doesn't matter how much money we're putting in. So everything is about education, and not only education, to get the discussion up. At any office, at any hotel or building, we need to get the discussion up. That's the most important. We build in, when I was working in Scandinavia, we built a standard. I think the first one was 94 points, and when I finished that was 155 points, and 101 points was mandatory for all the hotel what they was taking over. And the 155 points were mandatory when you build new hotel or renovation. But the interesting was that this standard doesn't matter if we didn't educate all the team members to think about things like that. Because if we just send one person to go around and fix the standard, then I'm asking the person that was technical or maybe going to doing the budget for science and like that. If he didn't know about that, he didn't put it out in his budget. So every apartment need to know about the standard so we can get something forward. That's the most important. So standard is very important to have something to work with, but the standard need to be done so everyone can understand the standard. It's going to take a little more time than if you send in a pro guy like me that know that, but in the end, is you're going to do it much, much more. So we need to do things that people starting to thinking, okay, do we have a hearing loop and a reception? Okay, how is it working? And things like that. So check in the box. It's okay with the check in the box, but we need to do that. More people in the office know about the check in the box. Then if it's an office or it's a place that they buy stores or a hotel, doesn't matter, but we need to getting this up and running, because otherwise we're not going to understand it. And the second is this good business? In the hotel business and tourist sector, nothing to discuss about. I just need to mention a few numbers. I was asking everyone that want to be disabled, please put up your hand, and that's never happened. Then I ask everyone that want to be 75 years old and older, please put up your hand, and everyone want to be that. And then, okay, and then I was thinking, how did you think about that? Because if you just go on the number, people over 60 in Europe, United States, 40% have some sort of disability, 65, 51%. Now we're coming to the interesting number. Before Corona was the people that are spending most money, 50% of the money, was over 60. So that is the big number. And if you go look in airports everywhere, I mean, the people that are spending most money is over 60. And 40% have some sort of disability. And they're going to travel. And they travel more and more and more. And there's so much more things we can doing. And I'm thinking really positive things all over the world. I think things happen. And some of the best airport, when we speak about the airport, that is, I was now invited to speaking in South Korea. And in Asia is some of the best airports in the world. It was so interesting because I was invited there to tell him what was good in Europe, and I said that I think we're going to go to you and see what you're doing. And that I've seen all the time in all Europe. I've seen good practice, but we don't do it on the same in all the country. But I can find good practice in every country. In this airport, there's something that I haven't seen in other airports that's really, really good. When you're going off this airport, you're seeing directly 5 meters go to left. Then you see a new sign, 100 meters go to right or left. You're telling all the time how long time is to go. That they need to do the next thing in the airport is to put up on the information on the website so I can find everything on the website so I can see how long it is. Because me that maybe have problem to walk, I don't know if it's a big airport, do I need to book assistance service or should I not book assistance service? So many times I book assistance service and I say, oh no, I don't need it, it's so short. And then it's just costing the airports lots of money. And I think that's important. You can do much more. So information is so important that we're putting up more information on our website. Even if it's a hotel or it's an airport or it's an office. If I'm going to meet someone in an office, I maybe need to know how many stairs is it or how big is it, and just put that up on the website. And I think with all technical thing we have to do should not be a big thing. Everyone have a mobile phone, we have a camera, and take a film, put it up on the website. And I'm thinking that's going to be the next thing. Now what I'm going to speak about, and it's good business. It's really, really good business. So I'm really hoping we're not going to have this discussion in 10 years that people say, yeah, but it costs money. Yeah, but this is a really good investment. And I'm thinking that's something we need to think about. This is extremely good investment. And people is just going to travel more and more and more. That we're really seeing. I mean, after Corona is going up like this and the hotel is full and things like that. So the tourist sector is really, really coming. So that was what I was to tell about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Magnus, and thank you for bringing this lively, way of speaking about, the real experiences you had. The small comment about Korea, it might be very good. I had a friend with wheelchair going there, and she said she didn't have accessibility issues, but she couldn't get out in the airport properly because no one spoke English. So that's also part of the education. And no, but it's important because when you need people to deal with you, to lift you, and to take care of your wheelchair, you need to communicate with them. If they come to you and they cannot speak with you, you have problems. So, I mean, sometimes accessibility is not even enough by itself. So I come to the point you said about education, and this is also part of the education. And in general, what you mentioned on education, I think it's super important to do this mentality shift in the, when we work in the sector, in that case, in disability sector or hospitality sector. What we deal also with disabled people, to make sure that we know what we are talking about. And like I was eating yesterday the breakfast in the hotel, and the guy from the hotel came to me. I was with other wheelchair user in the same table, and he asked, "Are your rooms okay? Do you need anything? Should we change anything?" And one of the other guy said, "My bathroom is not properly accessible for me because it has a bathtub. I cannot use it by myself." And the guy of the hotel went and came in 10 minutes. Your problem is solved. We give you another room. Come later, and it will be fine. And he asked me. I mean, I was okay. I complained about bed, but I didn't want to change it because the room is good. The complaint is that hotels always assume that we sleep in the same bed with assistants, which is not a good idea sometimes. In case if you have assistants 2 meters like me, but this bed is huge, so we don't really have an issue. But I mentioned to the hotel, that it's good to think that when disabled people are traveling with assistants, they might need them in the room, like me, but we might not need them, on our bed as well. So stuff like that, it's good to discuss with the hotels and with other, staff. Also, you mentioned the toilets, big issue, huge issue. In some cases, people need to have a key. Many people don't know that there's a key to use toilets in Europe or stuff, which is annoying because you should be able to just use the toilet. Another issue is that in Greece, for example, I was in a tourism place, and they have accessible toilet, but they use it like a storage place. So because many people don't use it, so they do the disability toilet to put, I don't know, everything they cannot put anywhere else. So stuff like that shouldn't happen. That's why we need, the education Magnus mentioned.
And I think, that I love to hear when they're coming over and ask you and things like that. And I think that's really, really good. And I need to take up one thing that we discussed before, that something we normally forget is that 70% of all disability you can't see. So it's so extremely important we take this up. I'm going to take one example that people don't think about. That I mean, we had this training when I was working Scandic Hotel, and Freon was getting all these awards and prizes, best hotel train from the world. And that doesn't matter, because I was around, and every time in the hotel, every time I see someone that was break the leg and going with 2 sticks and things like that, I was going forward and ask them, when you was checking in, did anyone ask you if you need a chair to sit in the shower? And that's never happened. Do you know what the guest said? Oh, do you have that? That would be wonderful. They didn't know about the club room. They didn't know about that. Sometimes we are afraid. So that's it again, that you're saying it's so important that we taking up the discussion, that people starting to think about this, because many times it may be the first job you're having, you work in reception, you don't know about the things like that. So that's again is so important. And then we know about the built environment, what we can do with next. That's one I think.
No, thank you for the comment. And yeah, these also things make me think about assumptions, and very often we make assumptions. We see someone, we say, oh, he's not disabled, she's not disabled, they are not disabled, but they might be, they might have needs, they might not stand for long or whatever. We should not assume, And you see it sometimes in the airport, where you see, people requesting assistance to get to the plane, and you just see people walking and doing stuff, and you say, oh, they are just fooling around and taking advantage, but they might really need it. So things like that we need to remember. But okay, I think we have a bit more than 20 minutes, or around something like that, to a bit of discussion and a bit of questions, if there is any questions for both you here in person, but also all of you joining online. We'll ask for assistance. If there is any comment online, let me know, because I cannot see from here. I can see those of you here, however. If any of you is, please raise your hand or indicate in any way. I think there is no chat or something. There's no comments, so for the moment, don't be shy, people. And those of you who didn't do it, don't forget to scan the QR codes. I remind you once again. Damn it, my English is bad, but okay. So, is there any question, any comment, and maybe someone wants to share experience or something from your areas of work or the place you live that it's relevant to the discussion? I see. There is one, yes. Please open the mic. Yeah.
From your experience in the hotels, is there some percentage of rooms that you had installed to have as well equipped?
Was different. I mean, that's interesting, because there are different laws in different countries. And but in Scandic we tried to build 10%. But I know in Norway it's 10% or something, but we tried to do sometimes 5% of the acceptable rooms after the law, if there was, and then we did 5% more that maybe not was that big, so around there. So you can do different things and things like that. Then you have in the Nordic country, you have a luggage room and things like that. So you have a little different about that. But I was saying the most important here is to checking what is. Sure, you always follow the law, but the most interesting, what is the business concept in that city? What can you do more in that city? We're trying to do that, and I still again need to see, because sometimes you don't need so many exact rooms if it's just, and sometimes you need much more, because if it's a conference hotel, or if what is around near, or it's a sport, so you can do different things. But we had in when I was working, so there was a hotel in Hamburg, and in that hotel we had, I think it was 330 wheelchairs in that hotel on 35 disabled rooms. because just because you sit in wheelchair don't mean that you can't walk. 80% can maybe walk, but just a few meters. So we just need to put in chairs in the shower. And some hotels maybe don't have any bath, or they maybe have a shower in all the rooms. So then it's easier. So it's different what you need. So you need to see different, and you need to go in and see what is the business, and that's it. That's again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you. Give me just 1 second. I am wondering myself sometimes while we're talking about 5 or 10%, why we cannot make the whole thing accessible for everyone. I mean, is it that difficult? Is it that unrealistic?
Yes, it is. Sorry, but because then you speak maybe about wheelchair, because then you have people that don't see as well, and so it's very different. And sorry, sometimes if you're going to do it, the bathroom need to be much bigger, and sometimes you need to have smaller rooms, and the price is different, things like that. So, but I'm thinking you can do enough room, so it's going to be good, and you need to checking so different things, but you can't do them perfect. Everyone can't be that's going to be too expensive, and you're not going to go then it's just going to go back to hotel, say okay, we are building after the law. So but you can do much more over the law that don't need to cost more money if you think in design for.
Yeah, I get it. And I know from experience that there is no such thing as perfect accessibility. Because I mean, even if you just take wheelchair users and you forget about all the other disabilities, I have seen, people who say we prefer low bed because we can transfer by ourselves. There are other people say we prefer high bed because we use a hoist and it has to go under, or we have assistant and we don't want the assistant to break his back. So, he prefers to have a higher bed. So, everyone will request different stuff. Of course, someone will say, okay, make just the bed electronic to go up and down, which I have seen in a hotel, but you usually don't see that. So there are solutions. And you raised your hand, right? Please.
Hello. And why not having, if there is more or less 16% of people with disability all over the world, having 16% of rooms prepared for accessibility?
Yeah, but when we're speaking about that, about 40% of the people have over 60 that's on disability, but that's all sorts of disability. 70% you can't see, so it's not about only wheelchairs. So, but I'm thinking what I've seen, if you're building 10%, that would be enough, no problem. If everyone, but if you look in the world, if you look in many countries, many hotels, they only have 1% or 2%. So that's the big thing. And design for all, I'm thinking, is more important, because today you can building rooms, so we can sell them for everyone. I mean, when I started, many times the hotels only sold disabled rooms, hotel rooms, for people that have some sort of disability, and not to everyone else. And then you lose money again. So you need to build them so it's designed for everyone, so everyone like the room. But of course, some of the rooms need to be bigger for the bathroom, and that costs more money. So I understand that discussion too. So, but I think we can do much more if we design it more better. Then we're not going to have that. Then we don't need to have that discussion. I don't think so.
In our case, we have 22% of accessible rooms.
Yeah.
We have a hotel in Canary Islands.
Yeah.
It's Hotel Taima.
Yeah.
And we have 22% of rooms which are accessible. 10 for reduced mobility persons, and 12 for blind and deaf. And all the areas are, we think, almost 100% accessible.
Okay.
The common areas.
Okay. When I speak about 10% accessible rooms, then I only speaking, when we speak of law, it's only for people with wheelchair. That's it. Then I know in the Nordic we're having 10% for a logic room, then you're having for blind and deaf. So, and that's over. And I mean, many of the rooms you can do all the rooms maybe for people don't hear so well. You can do that for every room, and so you can do different things and that. And I love the concept that hotel is starting out to look at what you're saying here. You do 20% that and that because you see what is the business again, and that's what they're all about.
Try to make a universal design in everything. Not for example, we don't have handicap bath. We have ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
And
wonderful.
they all are accessible.
That's
So
wonderful.
this is what we try to normalize everything because they are guests, not people with disability. And sorry, the thing is that we need to be known, and this is the problem that in origin they don't know us really by now. We have been open for 3 years, and well, we have had very nice experiences with people with disability, but still they don't know us.
Spread this information is not accessible for us.
Yeah.
For the world to know we exist, and it's a universal holiday for the world that we have a little corner on Canary Islands with this level of accessibility, and this is the barrier we have found, no, that we have this hotel and it's not easy to be known.
If you
Yeah.
would like to see our accessibility card it's on the website. It's public. If you would like to see now, or if you don't have time, doesn't matter. We can see later. But we have a card for reduced mobility persons, also for blind persons, or with visual impairments, and also listening impairments and hearing impairments, or deaf people. And we would like to improve. Of course, we are always improving and other things, adding things, technology, not only technology but the architecture, and we renewed the whole building, which was totally inaccessible, but now we think we have done it. And for example, we have had 34 wheelchairs at the same time in the hotel, and everything was perfectly. So, but it is difficult because usually the hotel owners, the companies, they don't see the business. They only see costs, but no benefits. The thing is, we see the benefit, and we believe, of course, in this business, and to make people happier, because they also have the right to have a nice holidays, but with or without disabilities, because this is not exclusive for people with disability. It's inclusive for everyone. The thing is,
Yeah.
it's difficult to be known I know Scandic hotels. We have been reading about Scandic hotels when we started our project, but it's a pity that in Europe they don't know us very well, because we have only 100 rooms, and it's not and it should be very nice that people knows that we exist.
Yeah, and my proposal, I mean, you should not speak about exactly what you said, not speak about so much about the disability, speak about your hotel and promote it like a hotel. Because other people will say, oh, it's only for, and that's very important for you to speak about it but we have it for everyone. And I think that's you should do. And I mean, if you look in Spain, you have all these big organizations that you can go out to and all, and that's, I think, is very important. I was working very much with the hotel. I work very much with the Paralympic committee in all the continents, and they have lots of bigger arrangements, things like that. And if I were you, I was going in Spain and going for them and going with that. Thank you very much for your comment and for you working for your hotel. Really, really good to hear.
Yeah, no. I know that Ivor want to jump in for sure. I also have some comments, but Ivor, you go first.
Yeah, just to this one, I was really pleased to hear about the hotel in the Canary Islands. And actually, we have a website which is called Pantou, which is a Greek word, as you will know, Camille, Pantou, PANTOU.org.
It means
And
everywhere.
Yes, it means everywhere. Yeah. And Pantou.org is a place where you can put your announce your hotel. It's an accessible tourism directory for the whole world, and it's free of charge. You have a profile page there. You can fill in information. It only takes a few minutes, and we would like to know, of course, more about your accessibility. So you can add some information about that. I would also like to just refer to this idea at the very beginning that I've talked about of passing on some of these important messages to the decision makers in Europe. And I think I'm hearing very strongly that we have to get a very clear and a strong focus on training for everyone who's involved in any kind of customer relationship. Frontline staff, we call them. But they're frontline staff in every situation, not just in hotels, but also in the post office and wherever you go. There are people who meet customers, and some of those customers will have a disability, inevitably. In the course of a day, it's just going to happen all the time. So there should be a much more awareness and availability of training on accessibility and disability awareness. And I think that's an important message to get through to decision makers, not just about how we build and design the built environment, but also about how people can work within the built environment, work within their settings, and make sure that the environment works for everybody. But just to come back to this idea about the quality of the design as a very important factor, I think it's also important that we should look at our own experience and try to encourage more innovation and reward people with simple things like awards, having awards for accessible design and universal design. And this is something that we're going to start with in INAT. We're going to have some design awards and awards for good accessibility in tourism and the leisure sector. I think this is something that we've needed for a long time. Some national tourist boards have accessibility awards as part of their annual awards. Many have sustainability awards. Many have awards for gastronomy and all kinds of things. And I think there should be more awards offered for accessibility and good design. So that's something that I would pass on to all of those who are working either in the sector of tourism, but in the built environment in general. Of course, architects have awards as well. It's very common to see awards for architecture. But what about the accessibility of the architects' designs? Is that so good? Sometimes it's not. So we need to highlight accessibility as part of sustainable and universal design, I think.
Thank you, Ivor, and it's open here. And yeah, I agree with the last point you said. And you mentioned Pantou, the website that you can list your hotel and other initiatives, and you can also see from different parts of the world similar activities. And I would also mention that, because as I said, I'm also a travel blogger, that we are part of big communities online, on Facebook groups, on stuff like that. And you can see like a group of Facebook of 70,000 people discussing, about and giving tips. And usually this word of mouth is what really works in this community. And Canary Island and Spain, it's usually one of the first responses where people ask, where should we go for vacation? People say Barcelona, say Canary Island. These are the places that come first, usually in the answers. And if you see the Access City Awards, EU Access City Awards every year, Spain cities are among the most, awarded every year. It's really impressive the work is done there. And I mean, I have been to many Spanish cities. And I was surprised because I was in Bilbao once, and I was looking for an accessible hotel. And I just was scrolling in the booking, and I found, one hotel in Bilbao. And then I went to the website of the hotel, just out of curiosity, and they had a specific page of accessibility, and one of the best rooms I have ever seen. And it was just random. I didn't know about this hotel before. So, it's good really if this hotel are more promoted. I agree with you, it's important because a lot of us need this and we just find it randomly, which is not, sometimes it's not, what we need. And yeah, I don't know, I think there is one comment in the chat, right? I see something. I don't see what. Only thank you. My vision is not the best from that distance.
Yes, I put the website address www.pantou.org, and somebody, it was Marilyn Thomas, who's an expert in Accessible EU in France, and she said thank you for sharing.
Thank you. So
That's it.
indeed, thank you for sharing. Is there any other comment? Any I don't know, reflection? Yes.
Thanks. I was curious as well if you can tell us about your experience and knowledge on new barriers that are appearing now with, I don't know, I'm thinking about new technologies, new services that in the hospitality sector, for instance. And I'm thinking we are always talking of, okay, removing barriers that we know about. But I mean, society evolves, needs evolve, behaviors evolve, technology evolves. And do you see any particular main issues that are coming up that you flag that maybe that are happening right now and that may increase if they are not being addressed or solutions is being developed?
I can do a long answer, but really short. I think with the technical that coming today, I think we're going to see a big changing in the big environment and things like that. Because today, when you come into hotels, more going to start looking like an airport that you can check in yourself and like that. So I think in a few years it's going to be better because in a few years you're going to on the most hotels check in yourself. And at the same time, the people in reception have more time to. Yes, not working with the check-in. They have time to help you and asking the right question and doing exactly what they did this morning in the breakfast area to ask people and things like that. And I'm thinking with all the technical things that are coming, I think we're going to see a big difference. And I'm thinking one of the things I did a test for many years ago was for people with autism. When you film free, and people said, and that's the next step is we're going to film more. We're going to have more technical. So it's going to be feeling much better. So I think with the technical thing, I don't have the right answer for exactly what happened, but I've seen lots of things. It's going to go there and lots of more things is going to be much better. But I mean, if we're just looking, I mean, many of the things that we're using today, we don't see in that it was first time was built for someone was disabled. I mean, looking everything from the remote for the TV and things like that was built for a person in Canada that was paralyzed and things like that. And if you're looking for the car, everyone today that drive a car, they don't lock up. They just push a button, and that was only for people in wheelchairs. So I think we're going to see the next step that's going to be much better. I really believe it. One thing I thought was going to already be done, that it's not done. I thought in a hotel or a building like this, if you was blind, you just going to put on your mobile phone and it was going to be a GPS around all the building. That's I already thought it was going to be done already in 2020, but it's not. So I'm thinking that's probably a building like this should have that. So when I'm coming in, I have a map. I can just put it on my mobile phone and it tell me exactly where to go, which conference room and things like that. I'm thinking that's going to be the next step. And just so I remember, after this session, we're going to have a QR code so we can load down and you can getting more information. That's important for everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Magnus. And from my experience, yes, just to answer also from my very quick experience to the question you had. I mean, there are a few things that are changing and we need to be aware. I mean, the new technologies bring new devices, and these devices sometimes I put in place that we cannot really benefit from them. Like, I don't know, new chargers or USB stuff, and things like that, where they are put in very strange corners in the room. But the basic point I wanted to bring here is, I think Ivor mentioned it at some point, the climate change. Sometimes we now discuss a lot about climate change and green, how to make hotel greens and stuff, which is perfect and we really need it. Climate change is the most important issue we experience as humanity at the moment, in my opinion. However, we see a lot of times that green solutions are not also these accessible solutions. So, for example, we hear that stuff are happening, let's do this, to save energy or to make it more green or stuff like that. But this is on expense when it comes to accessibility. So, for example, if you are a hotel and you say, we are very proud, we don't have any straws anymore in our hotel. Okay, great, but I need a straw to drink. So for example, we need to make sure that I have seen many such small examples, or like we don't use, I don't know, we don't have a parking because we promote pedestrian walking or stuff. Yeah, but I mean, I need to go somehow. So, stuff like that. So green and climate change issues, but need also to be adapted and to be considered. And you wanted to add something.
That we do have this geolocation in our hotel, and with a blind person with her mobile can move from her room to the reception, restaurant, swimming pool, and navigate across the hotel. So I think it is a very, very nice idea, and also it's useful for people with disability, because also it tells the accessible paths in the hotel.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and I'm hoping that's coming on the airports and offices and things like that. I'm meaning we don't use the technical enough. We can use much more than we're doing right now.
Okay, thank you. I think we are like 2-3 minutes before the official finish time of the event. I will give you the last chance, if there's any other burning question, comment, something, online or in person. Is there anything last? Otherwise, I think, no, I don't see anyone really bringing something more. So that's good. We are just on time. I hope this session was useful. I am pretty sure it will be also online. You will find the recording afterwards, together with all the other sessions of the Zero Project conference. So for people who missed it, or in case you want to share it with other colleagues and stuff, this will be available on the YouTube channel of the Zero Project, I think. Right? Yes. Perfect. And yeah, don't forget to check, the Accessibility website and the resource center. Don't forget, get in touch with us or with the people, involved if you would like more information in the future. And yeah, thank you for attending. Thank you for the technicians for helping, for the interpreters for interpreting, and for the assistants for assisting us. And I think I thanked everyone. So enjoy the rest of the day. It's a long day. The evening is the awards. And that's the fun part. And yeah, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.